All right. And we are live. Welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone. My name is Felipe from the Instantly team. I'm here with the great Josh Chernikoff, a sales and lead generation expert. We'll have a really, really interesting conversation right now. So, just so you guys know, Josh is right now in Mexico. He's originally from the US, so he's a very well traveled person. So he might be able to mix a little bit culture, like the different cultures here. His experience in sales and communication. He also works as a journalist. We will ask him more about his background in a second. But just to give you a quick brief of what we'll be discussing today. Basically, Josh is an expert on what it's about. Personal branding, building your ideal customer profile, and closing more sales. So we will have a very interesting conversation today. Welcome, Josh. How are you doing
Thank
today?
you. I'm good. I mean, I'm great, as you say. So no, I'm good. I'm in Mexico, where the weather here, where we are in the middle of the country, is always wonderful. And so, I don't have much to complain about.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I'm very happy to
Yeah.
hear that. So, can you tell us a little bit more about like how did you get where you are right now? Where did you start? Like, what motivated you to be where you are right now? You told me a little bit that you work in journalism. You studied that career. You also have a lot of experience in sales. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I think I got here by lots of stumbles and lots of failure. But that's how you learn. So my background is in print and broadcast journalism. I have an undergrad degree in print journalism. I have a broadcast degree, a master's from Northwestern University at the Medill School of Journalism. And I only really, growing up, wanted to be on TV, and I wanted to do sports. And so when I graduated with my master's, about 3 weeks later, I was on air covering sports in a town in Virginia. It was my dream job until it wasn't. It was a really amazing job. It was great to be on TV, but there wasn't necessarily that pull to kind of continue. I wanted to try something different. And so I was able to go work for the Washington Redskins, the football team in DC, where I'm from. I was there when a lot of really rough stuff was going on with the team. It was a very toxic culture. But we built the Redskins broadcast network. It was one of the first professional sports teams to kind of really own, your own media channel. We weren't broadcasting the games, but we were reaching all of our clients, all of our people immediately. It was like mind-boggling. But it was a tough place to work, like I said, and I wanted to give back, so I started a tutoring company. And the reason I was qualified to do that was because I had a lot of tutors. I knew nothing about education, but I had a friend who was doing some tutoring. I started doing some tutoring. It went well. And my first student, I helped him with his reading, and just so he liked reading more. We weren't really looking at phonics or anything like that. We were just making reading fun for him. Got another student. And I remember the day I was working with a middle school student, and we got to Venn diagrams. Remember Venn diagrams, like the circles overlap and everything? My brain does not work like that. And I told him, I said, you know what? This is not for me. We're going to need to hire somebody else. We need to bring somebody in, and brought in this tutor. Her name was Michelle Silva. And Michelle was with me throughout the time that I owned the company. I started the tutoring company in 2008. I grew it and sold it 10 years later. In 2010, I started an aftercare company, grew that and sold that basically 10 years later. So, I had no expertise in education except that I was a bad student and loved after school. And I started two companies that were successful and was able to start them, scale them, and sell them.
That's very interesting because a lot of people that I have met that are extremely good at soft skills and communication, they didn't necessarily do very well with school in terms of curriculum, because I feel
Mm.
like those things like cannot be really measured except when you go to the real life world, and then you actually have to do business and you actually have to close sales. So it's very interesting. So yeah, I'm glad you realize that there is something else like bigger for you. So very, very
Yeah.
interested to hear more about that. So guys, by the way, you can ask your questions live. Like I was saying, Josh will be focusing today specifically on how to help you close more sales because he's a communication expert, and also how to build an ICP, ideal customer profile, and also how to work on your personal branding. So feel free to start asking your questions live. We will be answering them here. We're live streaming, by the way, on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we will be reading all of your questions on those three platforms right here. So, Josh, what about if we start like with all your big wins? Like, what are those things that you're very proud of? So people, like are aware of like things that you have done that when it comes to like whether it's like helping one person to achieve something like that like they really felt like fulfilled, or whether it was like working for a company or helping a client. What are those some of those big wins?
Interestingly enough, you and I have talked now a couple different times. You probably can tell I'm a glass half full guy, but I would say that some of my biggest wins are some of my biggest losses. And I don't say it to be cheesy, but I think back to we lost a shitload of money at one point. Our company did because we made a pricing change. Um, I brought on some business partners that all of us, I think, would say probably weren't the best fit. But I'm pretty proud to say that I emerged. I got a lot of bruises to show for it. Some bank accounts were broken, some relationships were broken, some friendships were lost. But I emerged, and I'm really proud of the fact that today, when I work with people in the education space or outside of it who are hoping to generate leads, I can take all of those real crappy incidences in my life and I can help them learn from them as well. And I think it's really important to note that people come to me. I think people come to a lot of the folks who are on this right now for leads. But I also think it's really important that you can't just get leads, And so the biggest win for me is that in this third business that I have started, instead of kind of rushing into it, which sometimes you have to rush into the business because you get traction or you're in a financial situation or whatever, I was able to really build strategically with this business. And when I started, it's a couple of years ago, people came to me for leads. And I said, cool, I can get you leads. That is no problem. And I started getting them leads. And guess what? They didn't know what to do with them. And so I took a step back. I don't think my wife was necessarily happy that I took a step back, but I took a step back. I took some time and I built out a course. I really thought through what was kind of my superpower in lead generation, what made it work. It wasn't, per se, it wasn't knowing my ideal client. It wasn't necessarily just being on LinkedIn. It wasn't necessarily, having a list of 10,000 people that had no data decay. You had to put all those things together to have a powerful lead generation system on repeat. So I think to answer your question, some of my losses have been wins, but my biggest win right now is finally at the age of 43 or 44, whatever I am, kind of building a business that is repeatable and scalable. And I know how to help others do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I'm very happy to hear that because I feel like today we sort of glorified like all of those big wins, and I'm 100% with you on learning from failure. I feel like that's something that we can grow more as people in a way. So I'm very happy to be with someone who is brave enough to like say that openly. So By the way, Johnny says powerful statement to what you just said, so I completely agree with that. So,
Cool.
Josh, how about we start dissecting like the three main topics that you are an expert on? That and by the way, like I think Josh was just mentioning that he has a course. He actually is having tomorrow a course. So if you visit joshchernikoff.com, that's the website, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
joshchernikoff.com, and then in the upper right, up here it says masterclass.
Awesome. Yeah. So he's having a masterclass tomorrow. He will go more in detail about all these topics. So if you are interested in signing up on his masterclass, I strongly recommend you do so. Um, so yeah, basically, when it comes to talking about the ICP, one of your of the main pillars of the topics that you manage, the ideal
Right.
customer profile. So what do you think will be a good way to start to build it? Like what will you be your recommendations?
I mean, I think where I'd like to start is just for people to understand why it's important. And the reason that people need to understand their ideal client is so that you can target who you need to, so you can solidify your positioning. You need to believe in the power of one. Okay. And I think this is important. This conversation is very interesting for me because I spend a lot of time in the Instantly group community. And so I think that there's a lot of things that I can talk to people about who are in that community that can learn as they, because it's a marketplace a little bit as well, but also when they probably take some of these things back and work with their clients, because there's a lot of good folks there who are helping with writing. And how can you do the writing if you don't know your client's ideal client profile? So again, when I talk about the power of one, I mean just one client. That's to me the place to start. Think about it for me. I know how to do lead generation. I could probably do it in any industry, but I am best at it in the education industry. Granted, I can talk agnostically, but I would say for anybody who is starting out your business, the idea should be to find one client that you can talk to, one client that you can do discovery with, one client that you can listen to. And when I say listen, I mean actively listen. Because what that's going to do is that is going to help you figure out what that person is thinking about, what their pains are, so that when you talk to the next person, you hear the same thing. And the next person, you hear the same thing. So that when you eventually go to sell to people, you are speaking their language. You know what I mean? So if you're doing discovery, you have to do a lot of listening. But eventually, when you go to sell, if you have been listening to your discovery calls, writing them down, mapping them out, seeing the nuggets connect, then what you can do when you do go to sell is you can speak somebody's language and they will realize this person knows what my pains are. This person knows how to get me to pleasure. So that would be my method for an ideal client.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And so, okay, so what about like those that already know their ideal clients and they want to improve? Like, what are those things that do you think they could be doing better? Apart from what you just mentioned, apart from the obvious, like let's say someone already knows who is their ideal customer client. Is there any methodology they can use to improve it? Because as we know, like it's more or less like something that is constantly changing, I guess.
Yeah.
So, what are some of those methods to adapt as times change?
We use something called the Raise Your Hand campaign, which I'm happy to talk to people about, which is really a system, a process, a repeatable process where you can talk to people, interview them, and essentially take them on a journey from what their pain is to what their pleasure could be. And it depends, on the niche or the industry that they're in. But I think, a raise your hand campaign is important in terms of just listening to people. One thing that you can do a step past that is building up your own credibility, so that when you go reach out to people and you're doing a discovery call, or what we call the raise your hand campaign, when people go check you out, they're going to look on LinkedIn. That's the first place they're going to go. And there's some really quick, you talk about wins, there's some really quick wins you can get on LinkedIn. What does your banner look like? Do you have a professional picture? And then a headline. 120 characters is all you have. And there's a very clear formula that you should be using these days. I help who, using what method, and have generated these results.
Yep.
And if your LinkedIn profile reads like a resume, then you've got to get with the times, and it should read like a sales profile, sales funnel. So I would say that, like, if you've nailed your ideal client, awesome. Because your ideal client should essentially dictate what your LinkedIn profile looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to have people go to my LinkedIn profile. I work on it constantly to improve it, to make it a sales funnel.
Yeah. No, that's a great tip as well. Actually, that we're jumping into the next pillar of your course and your expertise, which has to do with personal branding. So, apart from LinkedIn, actually, let's rewind a little bit more. So, before even starting with working on LinkedIn, what are some of those things that one should also consider when building personal branding? Like, like what are those components? Because you mentioned that one should think of the results that one can drive to a company and so on. But what are more of those things that you think people should think of?
I think it comes down to one word, which is just being professional. And in all aspects, when it comes to the look and feel of your website, when it comes to the look and feel of your branding, and then when it comes to look and feel of you, you're not going to rush anybody into a sale. And if the more time you take, the better it's going to be. People will tell you when they're ready. They will show you when they're ready. I have a very clearly defined process that I go through when I meet with people. I follow up and meet with them again. And essentially, they pre-qualify themselves to work with me, because I know that I can help them in the things that they need help with, but they need to kind of identify that themselves first and say, oh yeah, I don't know my ideal client. I haven't really thought about LinkedIn, these things. And I say, well, if you think about them this way, and here's why you should, and we do these 9 steps, then you will go from no leads to a steady flow of leads on repeat. You will go from hundreds of leads to thousands of leads on repeat. And that's the important part, the on repeat.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. And actually, it's kind of funny because every now and then, like some friends or people like will send me their websites and will ask me, hey, can you give me some feedback about like my offer and my website?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it just doesn't look professional enough. And for them, professional means like, let's just put as much as we can in there, and let's just push people into like, like, let's say you open the website and the first thing you have to do is like accept the cookies, then close the whatever newsletter that is popping up, then close like zillion tabs to then start having to read like among 10 different offers and services. So I think, like probably looking professional will have to do with having a clear value proposition as well, but also having like a clean website, because I've seen like a lot of websites that they just look very cheap.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
what I have found and believe, and sometimes even have to recalibrate myself, especially in sales, your gut, your instinct, your desire is to close as fast as possible.
Yeah.
to give them as much information as possible. But I can tell you, the confused mind does not buy. It won't. And so even when I do my first kind of introductory call, it's 25 minutes. And that's it. Even if I could go longer, even if they're ready to buy, nope. You need to go back. I need to go back. And then the next meeting is 45 minutes. And if they aren't ready at that point, maybe we can meet one more time, but that's it. And so I think the important thing to remember here is that sales takes time. Quantity is helpful in cold email, for sure, but it's going to take time nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you'll be surprised with the amount of people that I know that, they are extremely good with Instantly when it comes to cold email. And they generate like tons of meetings and calls and everything. But then they're like, I'm just like not being able to close people. But I think like it has to do with also slowing down a little bit. Like, I mean, with all these tips that you're just mentioning, obviously it's not just there is not such thing as a magic potion for all of this, but it definitely has to do with following like a strategy and following a path. So I'm very glad to hear you're highlighting all of this.
It's got to be strategy, and it's got to be repeatable, repeatable.
Yeah. So what about like those places that one can work on their personal branding? So you mentioned LinkedIn, maybe a website would be another one of them. Like, do you have like any favorites or any that you would recommend to people? Maybe depending base if they're on what industry they're into. Like, do you know if there is any that people should focus on?
I think it really depends on the industry. Like for me, it really is LinkedIn, although I wish it was more Instagram because Instagram is more sexy,
Yeah.
But for example, like I don't know if it was a joke, but I got a good laugh out of it. When I was in the community, I was reading through some of the comments in the Instantly community at one point, and somebody said, can somebody generate a list of people who have owned a boat? And there were so many great comments, about owning a boat. But let's just follow that thread. Like, let's say somebody really wanted to reach people who were in the boating industry. I would imagine Instagram is a better place to hang out than LinkedIn. And so I think it's understanding your ideal client, where they hang out, and they'll tell you, and then spending your time there and being consistent for sure. But then also being thoughtful about not only what you write in your own post, but then how you interact with other people. What I mean by that is I spend an hour a day, my first thing in the morning from 6 a.m. to 7, doing what I call LinkedIn and learning. And I am there commenting on people's posts in a thoughtful way, not just like love it, or that's literally the best thing I've ever read, or something like that, but really like reading it and hopefully adding, value to what they've written and adding to the conversation. And so I think that is helpful, so that wherever you spend time building your personal brand, you're consistent and thoughtful on it.
No, I agree with you. I mean, adding value, I think it just doesn't just go with just with the personal branding, or like you say, like connecting with people on social media. But I guess like it's like overall like should be part of like one strategy. Like I also agree with you. Like
and it
a lot
feels
of
good.
people, yeah, it feels good as well. Like you're not just like, okay, I'm taking money out of you. It feels like, okay, the people are actually getting something out of it, even like before they even make a purchase, or maybe they don't make a purchase, but they still get value and they will tell their friends about it. So it's just a fantastic.
You're getting value out of it yourself, because people are going to your LinkedIn or your Instagram or checking you out. It looks like we had a kind of a question here about using personalized videos in cold emails. And I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a huge fan of video. In Loom, I might be Loom's like number one client because I'm consistently following up with video. I think it's the best way to communicate. So I think that's just another thing. Like if you're into video, maybe it's your YouTube channel, but then be consistent with it, and you can follow people in your sales emails as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great advice. So when it comes to the third pillar of your strategy, which is closing more, you mentioned before about closing slowly. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what's your motto, what's your methodology when it comes to closing slowly and closing more?
Yeah. So first of all, anybody who comes to that masterclass tomorrow is going to get kind of my 9-step blueprint for how I do this in terms of closing. And it is 9 steps. And it does take 9 steps. Now, I can work with people in a group coaching setting or in a one-to-one, and it might not take 9 weeks, might take longer, might take less. But it does take 9 steps for people, in my opinion, to go from 0 leads to a steady flow on repeat. And so I think what people should be thinking about is, how you package up your offer is really important. Again, the confused mind doesn't buy. So, are you packaged so somebody can say yes? Are you packaged so people can see against your competitors why you're the best choice? And you have to create an irresistible offer. I mean, literally irresistible. So when I talk to potential clients, again, they pre-qualify themselves. I ask them specific questions. Just like this, we're looking at each other. And then the next thing I do is I bring up my signature solution. And then when I walk them through the signature solution, I take a step back, literally, and I say, does that have everything you need to build your lead generation engine? And I know it does, but I ask the question, and the answer is generally yes. And so that is what I mean by packaging up an offer, so that the only thing people can say is yes. And really, there are only 2 objections that come up: time and money. And they say, I don't have enough time. You say, well, what you're doing here is sucking your time. So give me some of your time and I can help you. I don't have the money. Well, what you're doing here is not working. And we work with and get to know a lot of smart people who've been to great universities. So they know that if they invest in themselves at a university, it's going to pay dividends. And I encourage them to do the same thing. This is an investment. Sometimes I hear from people that, oh no, I want to outsource this. What? You want to outsource your lead generation at the outset? Nah, man, you got to learn this stuff. You need to know this better than anybody. And then you can teach it. So, the idea here, and I hope I'm packaging up everything I do well, because I want to practice what I preach, is that you essentially have an irresistible offer for people, because you have, and go backwards, you have listened to them in your conversations. You have heard their pains. You have put that in your LinkedIn profile. You have now put it in your signature solution. You're an expert in what they need help with, and you have communicated it to them. Why wouldn't they say yes?
Yeah, it's definitely a natural process, and I feel like a lot of people think like your ideal customer should only like your offer, but I feel like they need to love it, because to change a habit or to change something they're doing probably takes like a lot of effort. So probably the ROI or whatever they're getting out of it like should like definitely be way higher than the effort they need to put into learning that stuff or into implementing it. So I completely agree with you on that
100%. I mean, it's an investment, and think about what you invested in yourself when it comes to your own body or your own mind. So we had a question about the masterclass. I sent you in the private chat the link. I don't know if you can post that up in YouTube.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
connected in.
We'll definitely put it in YouTube after
Yeah.
this, but you can also go to joshchernikoff.com and yeah, you will see the masterclass there up there. I think Josh just mentioned it.
There's a good question here also, speaking of investing, about getting featured in different media. I am the biggest fan on earth. If you can get featured in press releases by the news, that is absolutely the way to go, because those are theoretically people with credibility who are talking about you. My business changed. My first tutoring business changed. I started it in October of 07. In April of 08, the tutoring company was featured on the NBC affiliate in Washington, D.C. And if you live or know Washington, when Jim Vance and Dorian Gensler talk about your company, you are golden. Granted, I pitched a good story, a relevant story, a timely story. It was about summer brain drain, which is when kids take off from all summer and they kind of lose everything they've learned. So that story aired, in that spring, urging people not to allow summer brain drain to happen and just get a tutor. Here's some tips. And the company took off from there. And what it took me to do was to write a good kind of story for the reporter, to prep who was going to be interviewed, and then to make sure that it was totally unbiased. And it was. So to answer your question, if you can get featured in press releases, if you can get media, totally awesome. The problem is, I call those my slow burn methods, because they're really not scalable. They burn out. It's like referrals. How many referrals can you get? How big is your network? It's like social media ads. Eventually you get tired of paying for ads, which is why I encourage people to own their own lead generation system, so that you don't have to rely on these slow burn methods like press releases, like ads, and you can manage it yourself. You can turn it up, you can turn it down when you need more leads.
Yeah. Christina here says, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Christina. Nidal, nice to see you as well. He's just reading some greetings. I guess some people are really enjoying and they're just joining in the live stream. So one question I think from Johnny is, how do you generate leads for your company? So, I mean, maybe you can describe it for like any of your companies out there. Like maybe people want to learn new methodologies. So yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I'll answer the question for myself, but then I'll answer it for how I would answer for others. I think you have to generate leads using methods that you're most comfortable with. And I got to tell you, although we are all firm believers in cold email, or what I'll call targeted email, not everybody is.
Yeah.
So not everybody you're going to reach is going to be interested in using targeted email, even if you tell them it's not cold email. The reason it's not cold is because we build a list based on our ideal client. We write based on listening to our ideal client. And then we have something that they want, that they need. To me, that's targeted email. Looks like I got some balloons that went off. You guys very excited by my targeted email explanation.
I guess that was a powerful statement. So just
that was. How about that? I'll take more balloons if you guys want me to send more balloons up. That was a powerful statement. But I would say that you have to figure out how people want to sell. And I prefer cold email, targeted email. I prefer LinkedIn, and I prefer video, which is why I'm here today, and which is why I have the masterclass tomorrow.
Yeah.
Some people don't like targeted email. They might like conferences. And that's okay too. Because if you're, if they prefer to go to conferences and they've invested $100,000 in a booth or something like that, okay. If you're building a list for them and they're going to a conference, you can figure out who else is going to the conference. If they're going to that conference, you can help them with follow-up messages and you can build their list that way. So I have some people who are in my current cohorts that are not a fan of cold email. I have convinced them that it's actually targeted email. And so I think it's important to listen to your clients and figure out how they want to sell, what is most comfortable to them. I had a client that I worked with for 6 months. She's fantastic. But it wasn't until about month 5 that she said to me, I'm just not comfortable with cold email. I'm like, really? Okay. Well, that would explain why we haven't had much success. And I put that a little bit on me and a little bit on her. We pivoted and we made it more comfortable for her. So I think, to answer your question of how do I do lead generation for myself, LinkedIn, and using shows and video. For others, it's a personal thing, but listen to them and ask them how they want to sell.
Yeah. Actually, I think you nailed it down with this one, because what we have noticed with our most successful clients here at Instantly is that, cold email doesn't need to necessarily be the only channel. Like, you can actually combine channels. And like you said, when you target, like, you can get amazing results. For example, we have noticed that those customers who, let's say, send a call, like, let's say they are attending a conference, okay? And they go to like this massive conference and they get an attendee list with like 5,000 participants. Now,
Right.
there is no chance you can meet all 5,000 people. And you also don't want to waste your time, really, because you probably spend a lot of money in hotels, in flying there, in like the tickets to attend. So some of our clients, they actually somehow create personalized first lines, and then they send a call email pitching their services and telling the person, hey, I will be there in the same conference that you will be. Would you be interested in meeting with me? And that way they build a funnel and they have 30 or 40 quality meetings through the entire conference that probably are like the best sales they will make in the entire year. So there are some really smart ways of combining channels, but at the same time targeting the right people. Another one that we have noticed as well is, for example, like, you can combine actually 3 channels: LinkedIn, cold email, and events. Like, so some people, for example, they will attend LinkedIn events and they will scrape the entire attendee list, like, somehow, and then they will get their emails and then they will target these people. So that way they are actually posting on the event or community or whatever. Then they're also nurturing that via email. They're obviously not trying to close via email, but they're just mixing channels. And I find that tremendously interesting in a way, because they're just not relying on one channel. They're just nurturing the entire relationship through different channels.
Well, again, you're meeting people, just like I said, kind of with how do people want to sell? You're meeting people where they want to meet you. Some people might want to be on email. I prefer LinkedIn to meet with people. So anybody who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, go for it. Like, I've got the LinkedIn chat open all the time. And I can't stand email. That's why you hear apologies. I just muted my Slack. That's why you hear my Slack going off all the time. I can't stand email. So I'm Slack or that LinkedIn chat. But you bring up a really nice point about personalization. I feel like I was really there early on when personalization was happening through AI. And unfortunately, I think it's been a little bit overused. And I think people are sniffing it out a lot. now.
Yeah.
And so I think, to your point, if you whittle down a list of 5,000 down to 30 and then meet with 15 and then close 10%, that's a good conference.
Yeah.
You know, you'll make your money back that way. It'll be a good conference. But I can't tell you how many conferences I've been to, I'm sure you have as well, where there's so much buildup. When you're there, it's like you're running around, your head is cut off.
Yeah.
And then, because we are entrepreneurs and CEOs and CFOs and CROs and CMOs, you got to get back to life. And you got all that follow-up from that conference because you thought you'd leverage a list of 5,000 and probably 98% of those people are useless to you.
Yeah.
And now you got to get back to running your business. So conferences are a really good example of this, again, this slow burn method. They'll burn you out, man.
Yeah.
They really will.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. So what about your masterclass tomorrow? So what will you cover on it? What are some of those hot topics that might be interesting to some people?
Yeah, totally. So, what we are going to do is talk through the steps to building secret steps to building a lead generation machine on repeat. And that's the most important thing, the on repeat part. Because I feel like in sales, it's try this, try that, that worked, that didn't, figure out your system and go for it. We're going to talk through ideal client for sure and the value. We're going to talk about boosting your credibility, especially using LinkedIn. I'm going to give people some real quick wins that they can do. And to talk about the value of, messaging, whether it's LinkedIn or cold email. We're going to talk about how to then package up what you sell. And that's going to be in that signature solution. And, the masterclass is about 45 minutes. I'm going to have people stick with me, and then they're going to get that blueprint for their own signature solution. And, I really want to talk to people just about automation and being repeatable. Because, again, we have so much to do in our daily lives that if you can get things on repeat, if you can automate them, especially your sales, you can focus on your clients, your own clients, and not worrying about where your next client is going to come from. Steady flow. That's what the idea of coming out of tomorrow's masterclass is for, helping people create a steady flow of leads that they own, that is not reliant on an agency or another person.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And do you feel like these methodologies are applicable for most industries and like territories or geographies, or like what are your thoughts on that in terms of industries? Like, is it for certain ones, or would you say that it will work for most of them?
It will work for all of them.
Nice.
But since I want to practice what I preach, I have been most successful in the education industry doing lead generation. So my methodologies are agnostic to any industry, but tomorrow I will talk more about how you would do this in the education space. But if you show up, and I hope you do, you will learn lots of tips and tricks and those 3 secrets that will work in any industry that you're in.
Nice. Fantastic.
Yeah. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no. And yeah, so by the way, guys, I just received a message from someone. Someone sent me a message like about like this instantly new feature. Like in case guys you haven't tried it out, we just launched a new feature on Instantly. It's called BounceShield. So basically, just like Josh is mentioning right here, it's important to target the right people. And sometimes you might end up emailing people whose email might not work anymore, and that can bounce, and that will damage your reputation. So basically, we implemented a feature that prevents some of those emails from bouncing. So it's like a second degree of protection from your email campaign. So we obviously strongly recommend you verifying your email list so that way your emails don't bounce. But this second degree of protection should further reduce your bounce rate. So if you want to land on the inbox, it's very important that your emails don't bounce. So yeah, there goes your answer. Sorry, someone just sent me a message as a reminder to talk a
Not
little bit about
the
that feature.
That's really important. That's a really important part of emailing, and I appreciate what you guys have done at Instantly. I've been a fan for such a long time, and I've watched you guys innovate and grow over the years, and I completely appreciate that. You guys got out of the gate as very strong, and then you kept innovating. So you didn't just sit there and say, well, we're good now. And so as a user for many, many years, completely appreciate everything you guys do.
No, I appreciate your trust. And actually, we have another question regarding another feature that we just launched, the job listing feature. So from Facebook. So by the way, the job listing feature was also like newly implemented. Same stuff, just like Josh was mentioning here about the importance of targeting the right people at the right time, with a good offer, of course, among many other things to convert better. So we launched this one feature that basically tells people who is hiring, or we can allow you to target, let's say, every single company that is hiring for a sales director. So, for example, if you have an offer that helps to increase revenue, for a company that is looking actively right now for a sales director, and you have a good offer that resonates with them, it will further increase your probabilities of getting a reply or closing business with them, because they are probably in that exact time as a company looking to get more revenue. So you can play around with that filter. Let's say you have a good product for HR. It might be worth targeting companies looking for new, let's say, HR members or a new HR director or stuff like that. You can be creative, but I guess you get the point. The job listing feature basically tells you which company is hiring for X position, and you just, in the field that you will find in the Instantly lead finder, you can put any position that you want. Can be customer support, can be anything, and then you'll get all of the companies hiring for that position. So you can be creative and target the right companies at the right time with the right offer. So
I am because my buddy Mo here still not seeing the link to the masterclass. I have hopped in over YouTube and I popped in my URL there, Mo, and it's
nice.
joshchernikoff.com. And then when you go to that site, you'll see masterclass in the top right, and you'll be able to sign up for the masterclass.
Nice. Yep. But we'll put it in YouTube as well for everyone out there, in case you're not seeing the link. It's a very powerful masterclass. So
we spent a lot of time on it. Continue to. It's going to be, my background is in TV, in live TV. So, tomorrow is going to be live TV. You saw those balloons pop up in back of me just now. That was certainly not planned. You just got to roll with it in life and in business. You'd certainly have to roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what about the future, Josh? So where do you see things moving forward in the future? Because you just mentioned that, people are picking up on like all of these personalized first lines and so on. So how do you see things in like the next years? Like, what do you think people should like be prepared for, considering AI and how things are moving? And like what are some tips for people to be prepared in general?
I would say that the more that people don't listen to me about what I'm about to say is actually going to help all of us who do. And you'll be able to charge more for what you do because you're going to be more successful. And it comes back to personalization and taking your time. It comes back to that list of 5,000 that you talked about at that conference and getting it down to 30. It comes down to quality over quantity. And that's in building a list, that's in writing, that's in connecting with people on LinkedIn. I'd rather have 10 strong connections than 1,000 that suck. And that is a change. When I was writing emails and doing newsletters in 2009, 2010, like if I could pick up a list of 1,000 people who I had no idea who they were, even if they're not even in the education space, I'd throw them on my newsletter. You can't do that anymore because people are tired of getting shit in their inboxes.
Yeah.
And they're going to mark you as spam, rightfully so.
Yeah.
I used to send like 30,000 emails from my email address and nothing would happen.
Oh.
Nothing would happen. I promise you. It was like the strongest email address in the world.
Yeah.
Times are different. So I think what people should be prepared to do is take their own time. That goes all the way back to taking your time to the power of one. Go against like what your instincts might tell you. Oh, I need to be able to sell to multiple people. No, you need to be able to sell to one person out of the gate. Perfect that. Oh, I need a list of 100,000. No. You need a list of 1,000 that is strong. Oh, I need to be able to close as quickly as possible. No. You need to be able to close as clearly as possible.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, all of those things take time.
Yeah.
But if you take the time, if you invest in yourself, if you invest in your company, it will pay dividends because you will have, again, back to that word, repeatable, scalable automations when it comes to your systems. And otherwise, you're just going to be chasing your tail for the next lead every day.
I think also one thing people don't consider is that it's not just about closing sales, it's about also keeping clients, because some say that getting new customers can be more expensive than keeping your current ones, and that also aligns with if you sell the right product to the right person,
Right.
like basically it will end up being more profitable just because like those that end up buying will stay with you for longer. So that's also something that it's just everything is connected at the end of the day, so everything is aligned.
100%. And that's, when you were saying that, I was like, well, we're not even touching obviously on the keeping of the clients, but you're exactly right. You can keep clients more easily when you have clearly communicated to them what you are best at, because that's what they came to you for. Now you may accomplish that goal in 6 months and then you can upsell them on something else. But you're right. It's all connected to getting clients, to keeping clients happy, to them saying the right things about you, to helping you get more clients.
Yeah.
So it's all connected.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess we'll wrap it up with that there. Very powerful statement. Josh, I appreciate so much your time and joining us today. And
Thank you.
it was a pleasure having you here today. And I hope you guys go visit Josh's website, joshchernikoff.com, to learn more about him. And if you haven't tried Instantly, that you also try Instantly.ai. But if you are already a member, that you keep engaging with us on Facebook, on our Facebook community called Email Masterclass by Instantly, or on YouTube, where we are always exchanging and sharing knowledge and best practices to get more meetings and clients. So
thank you
so much,
for
Josh.
having me. Thank you for having me. And thank you to you who, is constantly in that community, like kind of helping people out and connecting people. And I've met so many great people that I'm working with in the community that you're managing. So from everybody who's commenting and for everybody who's in the community, I say thank you on behalf of them for helping us like day in and day out to get better at lead generation.
Yeah. Thank you guys for your questions. And we'll see you again in the next live Q&A by Instantly. See you, Josh.
Thank you. See ya.